What up?
Hey there. Yeah, we just got fancy there for a second.
Did we?
Are you there?
Yeah.
All right, now I hear you. You were very low for a second there, brother. Quit a couple applications here. Welcome, everybody. Who we got? Scuba Steve, Teresa. Let's see, Becky, Nancy, Sheets. Everybody in the house. Awesome. Cool. Well, as you know, Gemma, again, up late over in the UK. I love it.
What's up, Sheets? Mark Brown, Gemma, Scuba Steve.
All right. So we're going to be chatting about this March. We're going back to the lovely old South Pittsburgh Hospital, the Harriman Hospital. We're going to be bringing in our very special friend. He needs no introduction. It's all in the accent. Ian, who's been there many, many times as well. So he's going to talk about some of the things he experienced there. And then around halfway through, we're going to bring on Ronnie, the owner of both hospitals. And he's going to talk to us more about it. Answer any kind of questions we have about those two dates. It's going to be one hell of a weekend. That's for sure. I'm double checking the dates because I forgot what it was. March 24th and 25th.
Yeah, so it's not going to be, if you were with us the last time we were at OSPH, had a great time, a lot of stuff, but it was a little warm. Not going to be as warm this time. It'll be some nice springtime weather.
Absolutely. Oh, the accent. Oh, that's... Did she delete that as fast as she said it?
Who?
Oh, there she is. That's little Ian, Lisa.
I'm slow on the draw.
All right, yeah. I don't know if anybody watched the episode of Destination Fear that was at Harriman. I have not. So
I haven't either, man. I need to check it out. We got Jeff Matt. What's up, Jeff Matt? It's been since Bobby Mackey's, right? Since we seen Jeff Matt.
Yeah, been a bit. That weekend's going to be, I saw Mark just said Piper's birthday weekend. So what a way to celebrate. Going to be awesome sauce. And Dawn's birthday weekend too. Beth Daniels, what's up? See you this weekend. All right. Well, we got a little over 50 people in here. So we're going to bring in Ian. And let's just start talking about these two haunted ass hospitals. What do you say?
Let's do it, my friend. Han Brolo.
Hello, Ian.
Hello. That's a look of bewilderment right there. No. I can't read your lips, though. Do you have him muted, Mike?
No.
Technical difficulties. Oh, he's got a knife. Or what is that? Is it a pen? Is it a knife?
We just heard him before. I don't know what happened.
Oh, no. It's just a pen. I thought it was a knife. I thought he was threatening us. This is great. Oh, man. What's up, Lisa?
Ian's a tech expert.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know what's going on, bro. Maybe we'll just read your lips. Is there subtitles? Can we have subtitles? Didn't think to test your mic, Dad.
No, we were just talking to him before. It was fine.
No, we were. Oh, there he goes. It's got to be something. It's got to be something else besides the StreamYard deal, because you just muted and unmuted. I saw that.
Ian, can you hear us?
What's up, Scotty? Tracy? What's up,
you can't hear us?
He's turning it around. He's going to start hitting it against the desk here pretty soon.
Do you want to exit out and come back in? See if that helps?
Well, it'll okay. All right, we'll see in 5 seconds.
Yeah, hang up and then we'll pull you back in. But anyway, we can talk about OSPH first. I mean, that was one of the first places I've ever been to. I can honestly say one of the first places I've experienced things in. That's thanks to Ghost Asylum back in 2015. And Chris, you've been going there way longer than I have. So
Long time,
definitely,
yeah. Since way before Ghost Asylum, Ghostland, Tennessee. I think it was one of the first real big places that I ever went to. Right back in 2008. Yeah, I think I hear him now.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay. I don't know what the problem
It's weird because
was.
now you're coming through with an accent.
the deep southern drawl. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So sorry about the technicalities. I don't know what the problem was.
It wouldn't be one
right.
of our shows if that didn't happen.
Yeah. So what have I missed?
No, I just started talking. I said South Pittsburgh was probably, I can say, the first place that I recall experiencing something in. Been there a good handful of times over the years. Harriman, last, was it July or August? We were there. First time visiting there, we were just asking the people if they've seen the Destination Fear episode. I have not. Last year, I actually paid for a subscription for Discovery Plus, and yet to watch one thing. I get charged every month, but I haven't watched anything yet.
Yeah, that episode was good if you haven't seen it. And there was some confusion I remember seeing about, that they claimed that they were the first team there, or the officially there, and a lot of people said, well, no, that's not true. That place has been open for a year now. But the reality was their episode was shot well over a year ago or something like that. So they were the first people to go there. Harriman, yes. And they had some good stuff. I can't recall all of it, but one thing that did stick out was Chelsea was set up at the end of a corridor with a laser grid. And you could see the laser pattern on the wall at the end of the corridor, whether it was a stairwell or an elevator door, I can't remember, but it was black. And you saw the grid, a black shadow moved right across that grid, blacked out a number of the lights as it was moving like a right to left. So that was, and she didn't see it. She wasn't looking at it. It was just captured on a camera looking at her with the grid in the background. Yeah. So that was good. They had a lot of good stuff there. I don't remember me personally experiencing anything at Harriman back in the summer. It was just so hot, and that sticks in my memory that we had to come outside to try and get some air. But March is going to be much more comfortable for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, and I'm not a big spirit box guy at all. I think Chris is not as well. Neither one of us are. And there was some direct response. One of the guests, it wasn't even me. I was just watching them do it. I mean, direct answers, and it wasn't even like a possible yes, a possible no that you think you would hear through a ghost. Well, I did say yes. It was like saying names, and again, it's been a half a year. I can't recall exactly what it said, but I was pretty amazed by that, because that doesn't happen too often. When somebody breaks out a spirit box, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Right.
And it usually is people thinking they're hearing what they want to hear. And it's like, do you remember my name? Yeah. Oh, see, it said yes, it remembers my name. It's like, well, then say it, But that night it was saying stuff. And I know South Pittsburgh, I mean, countless things we can talk about there, because we've been there so many times.
Yeah,
well, I wouldn't mind talking about the Spirit Box event, that we experienced there. Like you, I'm not a great fan of that thing, and it annoys the hell out of me quite often with that constant static, and the way that these ghost, the geoports and the spirit boxes, most folks tend to ignore 95% of the noises coming out of it, then cherry pick the odd syllable, or say, oh, that's my name.
Exactly.
It said desk. Oh, did you used to work at a desk? I mean, they clutch at straws, or it's perceived that way, that it may not be an answer to a question, but they'll start probing what they're hearing. Mm-hmm. But we were on the 3rd floor at OSPH with Lisa, my daughter, and she walked past one of the open doors heading towards Nellie's room. And you're familiar with Nellie's room at the very end of the 3rd floor. She walked past an open door and her hair was pulled. Now her hair is bright blue. She turned around and accused her friend Kayla of tugging her hair. But I said, I saw the event and Kayla was way out of reach. And I said, no one did that. They went to Nellie's room and they had a spirit box or something on the floor. And they were asking about, did you pull her hair? And it said, hair of sky. So they thought, okay, sky blue. Then it said, blue hair, clear as anything, it says blue hair. And then it says Lisa, comes up with a name. And I'm quite cynical about those, but we've got those three things in a row on the spirit box. So that was some interesting stuff.
Well, when you get that, yeah, I mean, you can't deny that. That's
no.
I can probably count on one hand how many times I've gotten some really good stuff with the spirit box, and it's because mainly I think I don't ever use it. A lot of people like using it, so obviously if they bring it, I tell them absolutely break it out. We've worked with a lot of people for whatever reason they're crazy about them in Ohio, like all kinds of different shapes and sizes of those things. They love them, like the little boxes, and you turn the knobs, and like we were even at an event one time, and they kept turning the knob until they heard what they wanted to hear. It's like, oh, did you see it? Did you see it? Did you hear that? And then they turn it a little more. It's like, you're doing it right now. You're turning the knob. It's like, can you not just leave it sitting there? But Salem was one where we got a lot of really clear, prominent, things from the spirit box. But going back to Harriman for just a second, the one thing that I did experience there, it just kind of came to me when you guys were talking about the Destination of Fear, was I was by a nurse's station of sorts, and there was a room to the left, and I think one of the people who worked there said that they had it was somebody's room. They called, like, I think it was a male name, maybe, or maybe it was a female, I can't remember. It was a person that stayed in that room, a spirit, and we kept hearing knocking sounds in there. And then I brought the Wraith pod in there and then went out of the room, and we were asking questions from outside, and it was responding from inside the room. So that was pretty cool. And it was pretty direct too.
Place is big. I know that. Harriman's huge. Like, compared to, I guess, OSPH, we've been so many times, you kind of know the place inside and out. It's like you get lost around Harriman. It's a big joint.
Right. Tracy just said it was a female. All right. See?
Ian has a piece of evidence you got. This is from Old South Pittsburgh. Do you want to describe it before we play it? I mean, we can replay it a few times.
Yeah, I'll just give you the background. The wing at the back of the hospital, as you looking at the entrance, it's at the back, and on the second floor. They either call it the shadow corridor or the shadow wing. I can't remember, but I set up 2 cameras there. So if you start off at the nurse's station, take a left, and that's where my cameras were in that wing. One is an EMCCD camera, which is an electron multiplying camera that takes all available light, and it's in color. And I don't know if you can recall, Mike, at Tracy City, at the dead of night, we were in that graveyard, and it looked like it was daylight. You could see all the green, the grass, the green trees. It takes all available light and multiplies it, electron multiplying. And the other camera was an ICCD camera, which converts photons into electrons or something. And it amplifies all available light by 10,000 times, which is quite a lot. So it doesn't use infrared as a light source. So when you see these orbs and the light, dust, to me, that is dust. It's dust and insects. So when you get some kind of light moving down, that's my first thought. But both my cameras, and they were side by side, captured a light moving down the corridor away from the camera erratically, and then it zooms off into the right and vanishes into a picture on the wall. My first thought was, is it a bug? But you have to realize it's not reflecting any light, it's generating its own light. And a few people, when I posted it a year or so ago, said, now it's moving too fast for a bug, it's too big for a bug, and it vanishes through the wall. So that's the background behind it. And if everybody online makes the comment, that is a bug, I am more than happy to accept that as the explanation, because what I want is proper evidence, not something that I can tentatively say might be, paranormal. If someone can say, no, that's a bug, I'm good with that. But yeah.
And then when we hang up, you're going to say, bloody Americans.
No, I won't. I would.
You don't know a bug if it bit you in the eye.
In the arse.
In the arse. Well, let me play it here. Let me get
Yeah.
it up.
Okay.
Well, that's cool because it kind of disappears into the wall there. Is that the nurse's station right there? Or?
No, the nurse's station is immediately. You see that door on the left, right? That's it. That if you took a left down there, you go to the nurse's station.
Oh, okay, right on.
So this is the shadow wing, looking down towards the emergency room, the shadow corridor. I think this is called. Yeah. And I captured it on a color camera from a different angle, and it's got a long streak. So it's like if you were moving a fireworks sparkler through the, and it leaves a streak behind. The color one leaves it's the same thing, and it leaves a streak. So it seems to be generating its own light.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it was just a regular IR, anybody can say that's a bug. I mean, more likely it would be. But
yeah, and I love I'm not a big fan of orbs in photography, but if it's a video and you can see how it moves,
yeah,
that one almost looks like it's intelligent. If it was anything other than an orb, it would definitely be a bug. But I think just the fact that it goes into the wall and kind of disappears right there, that's kind of compelling.
See, here's your money right here. Scott says that you can tell him it's a unicorn, and with your accent, he'll believe you.
Okay. Yeah, that's an intelligent spirit that's wandering down the corridor, drunk as a lord, and then it hits its head on the picture on the right. I don't know, but it's out there. That was captured at OSPH in the shadow corridor, and that's where I usually put my cameras if I'm going there, and I'll be there with you two in March.
Excellent.
All right.
Yeah.
We don't need our neck fans.
We won't. We will hopefully not.
Oh yeah. For a second, I'm like, what? Neck fans? I know. Yeah. Now I get it.
But the evidence that we
had at the hospital was when you were on Paranormal Challenge.
Yeah, I was, unfortunately, on Paranormal Challenge. But we had been there many times before that episode. That wasn't our best decision.
But the stuff we've encountered there is pretty subtle. I think as Julie, my wife, described it, the stuff we've had isn't in your face. It's subtle. And just down from that shadow corridor, there's a room where Dr. Taylor, one of the doctors who was one of the 3 doctors there, is reported to hang out, and he smoked a pipe. And we were in there one night and smelt this smoke, sweetish kind of smell, pipe tobacco. And Ronnie can testify to this when he comes on. And the room was dark, but he got his phone, lit up the phone, put the flashlight on, and you could see the smoke in the room floating around.
Wow!
And then it just disappeared.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
Subtle. It was.
Well, yeah, there's. Gosh, I mean, I know with South Pittsburgh, countless things. I mean, countless EVPs, bangs, growls, meter activity. The elevators, the bells, the dings on the elevator, we heard them every single time we've been there. I think that we talk about it all the time when people say, what's the scariest place or what's the most haunted place, if you want to use that word. South Pittsburgh comes up. I mean, hopefully soon Harriman can be up there, but it's like we've only been there once. But
I would say for me, it's the most active for sure. Like the most things happen in one night when I'm there. One of the cooler things, well, that's where I saw my first full-bodied apparition up there by the elevators on the 3rd floor, going kind of into the surgery area. I saw what looked like a light source. It kept coming from the hallway there, the stairwell. So I went over to check it out, and when I did, you got to pass that hallway on your right where those elevators are. And I just looked for a split second, as you do walking by a hall, and I saw I don't know if it was in my mind or if I saw it with my eye, because it was almost pitch black. You could see a little bit, but it looked like a girl, maybe anywhere from 8 to 10, 12 years old, wearing a long T-shirt, and she didn't have a face, and it was a white T-shirt, and it looked like it had some kind of design on it. It could have been Looney Tunes or Mickey Mouse, something. It looked like it had some kind of cartoon on the front of it, and that was like the first time I had ever seen a full-bodied apparition like that, that had form and actual features and colors. And that was, way before Paranormal Challenge or Ghost Asylum or anything that we filmed. But a cool thing, this is just brings, you know, more validity, I think, in my mind to this place is when we filmed there for Ghost Asylum, one of our cameramen, Alex Pappas, you know, this guy, he's not into ghosts at all. And he rarely like buys into it or rarely has an experience or sees the things we see or hears the things we hear. And this particular night, we had just walked past the nurses' station, not the nurses' station, the nursery on the third floor. It was on the right, and there's a doorway to the left that goes all the way through to the other side to like surgery. And we went over there, and it was me and Chasey and Alex. He was filming us, and we heard 3 loud knocks on that door. It was right beside his head at the time, and it scared him to death. He turned his camera on it. I immediately went, opened the door, and walked right through the corridor, everything, and there was nobody there. There's no way somebody could have been that fast to have knocked on the door that hard and then hidden or ran away, because I checked every room and we would have heard them run away. So that was really cool. Kind of put a little shiver down my spine. That even like startled Chasey. So
well, we had a door handle rattle on the 3rd floor, coming from the operating room, heading towards the nurses' station. As we were walking past the door handle just rattled, and we went back and tested it. Yeah, that's the same door. Opened it, and it's just a little storeroom, but it was so loud as we walked past.
Well, there's a few people that were there when we were there back in the summer. Well, Lisa's one, Scott talking about it, and because you were in the group with me that time, and we heard something just drag.
Yes.
And then to try to debunk it, we went in a room, but that was the sound. It was like a desk drug across the floor, and that was the exact sound, but nobody was in that room.
Yeah, that was at the 2nd floor on the offices that overlook the parking lot. Yeah, and a few people did drag different things. And you're right, there was a desk by the window. They dragged it, and it was exactly the same sound.
Yeah,
and it was picked up very faintly on a couple of on my body cam. I don't know if you picked it up.
No, I don't think I was recording at that time, because we were like, what the hell was that? Because it's like it was loud. And then somebody went searching. Maybe it was Scott. I can't remember. Somebody went in the room searching, and they moved the desk, and we're like, that was it. That was the sound.
Yeah.
Let me see. Well, do you want to bring in the man himself?
Sure.
Ronnie, I know you can see us. I see Ronnie. All right. Hold on to your butts. Here we go. What up, Ronnie?
Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Thanks for coming out, man.
Oh, anytime. Anytime.
We're just sitting here talking about your the cool things that have happened to us there. I'm sure you've been listening in a little bit, but we definitely in every Q&A, like we were just saying 5 minutes ago, it's the most active location being OSPH, and Harriman's on its way.
Yeah, I agree with you. Both locations are pretty much on fire, and yeah, it's great to be part of you guys, part of the paranormal world, and to own two of one of the greatest locations out there. So thanks a lot for you guys coming out and bringing all your guests with you and being a part of this. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, heck yeah. It's gonna be tough. Let's see. I'm just reading some to see if there's any questions on here yet. What's up, Ashley? I don't know if you can see comments, Ronnie, but you're getting some hellos to you. No, you can't.
Hey, everybody. No, I can't, unfortunately.
Okay.
So yeah, I will have to say it's really kind of neat, because to get some of you guys out there and to bring up two other people that are real key players in the paranormal. We had everybody knows Brian and Rochelle from the Ghost Hunters. Yeah. And it was kind of neat because we did have a team come out, and we had a scout come out to do another filming at Old South Pittsburgh, and it was for a YouTube channel, and it was kind of neat because they had asked Brian and Rochelle if they thought the place was haunted, and Brian and Rochelle were very honest about it and said, well, you know what, we haven't really had any experiences that would put us over the top to say the place was active or haunted. You know, like you guys were talking about before, real kind of subtle things and that kind of stuff. But so we actually did what we did with you guys is we had them, I believe, out last summer. And we do kind of a thing with them that it's kind of a delayed thing where you can stay till 10, you can stay till midnight, or you can stay till 2 a.m. So we kind of make tickets more reasonable for people who don't want to stay as long. So I think on the last round, it was probably about 12:15-ish, 12:30. We were downstairs, and Brian and Rochelle were investigating with a group of people at the second floor nurses station. And we were downstairs, keeping the doors secure, making sure that people weren't trying to, get in while they're investigating. Well, all of a sudden, Brian and Rochelle come flying downstairs with, like, I want to say maybe a half a dozen guests. And he looks at me dead straight in the eyes, and he says, "You know what, Ronnie? I can tell you this place is haunted." And I was like, well, what happened? Well, they described what they saw as a full body apparition that walked right in front of them. And it was so dense that there was actually a lady on the other side of the apparition, and it actually blocked her out as it walked by. And Brian and Rochelle walked downstairs with the group of people, and they're like, they just had like an experience of a lifetime. Like, it was pretty amazing what they described and heard. So, when you have people like yourselves out, and people like Brian, Rochelle, and Ian, and some of our guests, and they can, like you said earlier, validate the things that are going on in that hospital. It feels so good to know that it's really happening and it's really true. So, just an amazing location.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody can go to any location, like if that was their first time, and make a judgment call, because there's places we go to all the time, and some days yes, some days no. Sometimes it's off the charts, sometimes a couple little things. So it's like, like I said, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've been to OSPH, but for me, that is one of the places where every single time I'm lucky enough to have something.
Yeah, and we all know that, like, ghost hunting or is like fishing. Like you said, one day the fish are biting, and the next day you think the lake doesn't have a single fish in it.
Yeah.
And no matter where you go, I think whether it's us or any of the other places, you have investigators who have a hell of an evening, and then you have investigators who have, kind of a slow evening, and OSPH and Harriman are kind of the same. So, but I think when they put their show on, it's an amazing location to be at.
Oh, absolutely.
When you can have, especially a group of people all validate the same thing at once. I mean, it's one thing if you get one person or two people, it always says two heads are better than one. Well, 4 or 5 experiences are better than 2. So if you can get a lot of people to have them, which we've had a lot of that here at OSPH for sure. We got a question from Katie. She wants to know, do you think the activity there is more residual or intelligent at OSPH? You can go first, Ronnie.
Being in the building as much as I am, I would say it's a great combination of both. I think that we do have some residual kind of nurses doing their rounds and that kind of stuff, but I think there's a lot of intelligent as well, because you do get a lot of responses. And some things that kind of crack me up is being there alone a lot. I'll walk in the door, in the morning or in the afternoon, and I'll actually hear somebody say, "Good morning, Ronnie." Or I'll be leaving at night. I'll hear good evening, Ronnie, or I've actually been working on the building, and Daniel Dorsey can attest to this, where we're in the building and we can't figure something out or whatever, and you'll actually get one of the residents like, "It's over here." And I remember Daniel and I looking for the water main on the 3rd floor, and we couldn't find it. This was when I just bought the building, and we couldn't find it, and Daniel kind of just goofingly kind of yells out, "Does anybody know where the water main is?" And on the other end of the hallway, you hear this little voice that goes, "It's over here." And I remember Daniel and I looking at each other like, no friggin' way. And so we walk over there, and Daniel's a lot taller than I am. Daniel's probably 6'2" or 6 foot or whatever. But so he lifts up one of the tiles where we heard the voice, and sure enough, there's the water main. So Daniel turns around jokingly once again, says, "Thank you." And you hear, "You're welcome." And these footsteps walking away. And this was only weeks after I bought the location, and we both looked at each other like, holy cow, what are we in for?
That's awesome. Now, I'd say that's intelligent. That's more than intelligent. That's helpful right there.
Oh, yeah. But the same thing holds true. So I can tell you a really frightening story. When I was at we had a major motion picture come through. They did one. It's called Grounded. It's going to be released in theaters, I believe sometime in spring of next year. And they wanted us to put LED lights up for them so that they could, film. And I was in one of the rooms. It was just me. I was there all by myself. And, as men and some women, we do really stupid things sometimes. And you know how it's got that little top step on the top of the ladder where it says "do not step," and we all do it anyways. So I was actually on that top step, stretched as far as I could to pull out a light bulb, and I felt somebody grab the back of my leg. And I turned around because I thought one of the volunteers had walked in. I turned around, there's nobody there. And then as I'm coming down the ladder, I hear, "Be careful." And I'm the only one in the room all by myself. So it was really frightening. So I went down to the lobby. I sat down in one of the chairs. And you know how when somebody kind of walks past you and you feel kind of that energy or kind of the wind go by? Well, I felt that. And then the seat next to me squeaked and it says, "I'm glad you're okay." So needless to say, I sat on the front porch and waited for the team to get back because it really kind of shook me up a little bit. But it is, like you said, it is kind of really neat. I think my team and I, we take, we really take great care of the buildings, and we're really trying to keep them clean and nice. And I think the residents kind of really agree with what we're doing. So they're really part of what we're doing for the hospitals. And I think our residents truly care about myself and the staff. So, when we're doing something stupid like stepping on the top ladder, the top step of a ladder, they're kind of like, "Hey, be careful, be careful." So it's kind of a really neat situation.
Well, at least I got your back. It's not like they tried to push me off the ladder and they're going like, "Die and get out."
Right.
They're like, up. Well, this brings up, Dawn wants to know, talking about both locations, what drew you to get these locations? Were you going to renovate and then it became more of a place to investigate, or what drew you to buy both locations?
Well, I'm kind of like you guys, where I was a paranormal investigator for the past 20 years. We went to OSPH probably 10 or 12 years ago, back when Cindy was actually running the location, and really fell in love with the location. And much like Chris, I had my first full body apparition experience there with a nurse. Fell in love with the place and actually offered, at that point in time, the Hayes family owned it. I offered them money to purchase the building, because you guys know, when it wasn't owned by us, they didn't really take care of it. It was in bad shape. And I just thought that it was a great piece of history that really needed to be saved. And the location was just fell in love with it, kind of very similar to you guys. Unfortunately, they weren't willing to purchase or to sell it. And I think primarily because they were making money hand over fist, they weren't putting anything back into the building. So we bought it at a tax auction, and then most of the proceeds that we're getting from bookings, events like with you guys, we put back into the building and clean it up. So it's kind of a love, and I love the paranormal. I mean, it's what brought me to the buildings. But now I've kind of switched gears, and I'm really into the history. Like today, we spent the whole day at the Historical Society here in Harriman, and wanted to learn more of the history of when it was built and all that kind of stuff. So like the whole medical history and the way the buildings were built and the additions they put on, it's very, very intriguing. And and by the way, they're haunted, so it's kind of a cool thing both ways. I get the best of both worlds. I get to save a little bit of history and get to know residents and that kind of stuff as well. And we do try and take the best care that we can with them. And we go out, we're buying some operating tables and some gurneys and some cool stuff to put back in the hospital, kind of make it look hospital-y. And we think when we do that, we kind of stir up activity, because then I think we get a little bit of that residual that comes along with that, because you're kind of putting more of the original stuff that was in the building. So it brings the building more and more alive. And it's just really neat, really, really addicted to what we're doing.
Yeah, I can attest to the work that you guys have put into the place, because we investigated it years and years ago when you couldn't even go over there to the apartment side of it. It was just, there was food that had been sitting there for God knows how long, and just all kinds of junk and like hypodermic needles and papers, and just, I mean, it was in complete disarray. I know anybody who watched the episode when I opened the fridge, that was like the worst idea I ever had. So, I mean, I know that takes a lot of manpower and a lot of work. And I know you guys have done, an amazing job of cleaning that place up and keeping it such.
Yeah, we've really tried. And, I think the worst experience we ever had was a young lady named Candace and I were actually in one of the back rooms that you talked about. And I remember Candace stepping, on a plastic bag, and we looked down and she actually stepped in human feces. Oh. And we were like, oh my God. And people were investigating this location. And I was like, oh my God, the poor thing's just screaming and yelling. And I'm like, ah. And so, I mean, like I said, we got rid of so much. I think up to date we're over 100 tons of garbage we removed out of OSPH. I mean, remember when you tried to investigate, you had to crawl over garbage, and it's all gone. It's all gone. The building looks, and the team has really worked really hard to, maintain it and keep it the way it is and get rid of it. So, kudos to all of them for helping and being part of this.
Absolutely. I remember back in day two, it's, you don't take an elevator, you're using the stairways, and the stairways were horrible. It's like, just to bring, it's one thing if we were just there, but you're bringing guests and they're going up and down these stairways, and it's like, talk about trip hazards. It's like nothing's marked. It's full of stuff. You're stepping over things as you're stepping up and down stairs. It was dangerous, but no, it's definitely a world difference from where it was, whatever that was, 5 years ago or so.
Well, I even remember we took down a couple of ceiling tiles, and there was extension cords that were strewn from one side of the building to the other, and they were electrified. Like they were literally hardwired into the electrical panels. And I'm like, who the hell did this? I mean, it was a mess. And I'm really shocked that, like you said, nobody got hurt or anything like that. And so we had, new electric put in so that we could make sure that we don't start the building on fire. And, we opened up new toilets and bathrooms, and we tried to make it the best of both worlds. And like I said, we spent a lot of money in that building, and it really shows, like you said. And I think the building's become more active as a result of that. I think the residents are proud to be part of that building. And you mentioned Dr. Taylor earlier. I have never been to a location that like this, where at OSPH, where that smoke is prevalent. It happens, quite frequently. And I know we've had a lot of groups come out, and they've got videos of it. And it's definitely, we talked to Dr. Taylor's daughter, and it's the same smell. It's a very specific type of tobacco that he used in his pipe, and she, identified it as yes. So it's really kind of a neat situation, and it only happens, in my opinion, at OSPH. I've never witnessed it, investigating anywhere else. So kind of neat.
Yeah, I've never.
I want also to say, you touched on your heel being grabbed, and as Mike said, it sounds like it was being friendly towards you. Julie, my wife, Lisa, my daughter, we actually feel so comfortable in there. You can be in the pitch black, and you never feel threatened. It just feels such a friendly, welcoming place. We've never felt frightened there.
Yeah, I think when we first bought the building, it felt, I don't know what quite the right word is, maybe a little uneasy, maybe a little on edge. Now it's welcoming. Like you said, you kind of walk in the door and you feel like you're home. I mean, and I think the residents there, even Jim, we tried to debunk a lot of the stuff that the old owners were talking about Jim with. And, I spent with Candace, and I think 72 hours locked in a hotel room, her and I, going through years and years and years of his life and debunking a lot of the stuff and a lot of the claims that were being made against him. And I think he was actually kind of one of those residents that was in the building that was a little uneasy and kind of pissed off because, people were really, really telling bad stories about his life. And when we got to the bottom of what kind of a guy he really was, now he kind of goofs around with you. And I know a lot of guests have had experiences. We had something that was sensational that happened where everybody who's been to OSPH knows that Jim was an aspiring artist. He was a musician, and he actually put the studios in his apartment. We had an a cappella club come out one day, and they went in one of the studios, and they were all singing. An a cappella club is all women who generally have really high voices. In the background, when they played the recording back, you can hear a male singing with the a cappella club. There was no men in that studio with them at the same time.
That's why I'm always telling Mike to bring his guitar every time. I'm like, why don't you ever bring your guitar to any of these locations and play something? Because I know music is a very emotional thing, and I think that's what triggers a lot of this stuff. So that's awesome. I mean, I think we should definitely, everybody in the chat room who thinks Mike should bring his guitar, time to go. Let us know.
Now, it's cool that you guys are saying welcoming, comforting. I mean, Ian too, and I'm sure. Don't get me wrong. I've never felt threatened anytime I was there, but I'm still gonna wave the uneasy flag. Like if I had to spend the night there by myself, I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. But I would be scared. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and try to sugarcoat it, but yeah, I would be scared because even though if somebody went, hello, Mike, how are you? And even though that's sweet and it's nice, but I'm like, I would still be like, I'm still running out the door if I was by myself. But
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking the same thing as these guys were saying it. I'm like, that's not been my experience at all. Like, it's one of those places, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But we used to investigate this place a long time ago when it was under a different group of people taking care of the joint, and I used to walk by like geriatrics and pharmacy, and like it was just the most foreboding, just dark feeling. Like there's something down there gonna get you. You know, I like would sprint from wherever we were set up back there to emergency to get outside to get whatever I needed and sprint back and have like 2 flashlights going. But I think it's probably because the majority of the time that we've spent there, with the exception of the last time that we were there, and one time before that, was back when it was under a different ownership and probably a lot of different things going on. So I would guess, venture to get, Ian and, I mean, both of these guys, Ronnie and Ian, you guys have been there more and have more experiences in the recent, so before that happened. So I don't even think, Ian, I don't think you were there before. Were you there before, Ronnie? So yeah, man, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, people talk about like growls all the time. 9 times out of 10, it's somebody's stomach. But the one time we were there at the hospital, and it was me, Brandon, and just 2 friends of ours. So it was just 4 of us in the building, and I think we were down in pharmacy, and we were in a row because we were, I think, recording, like set up a recorder at the far end or something like that. But we were all in a row together, and right behind us, we just heard a, oh, I mean, like it sounded like a person, not like a lion, but like a person just, what?
That's a no-go for me.
Well, yeah, no, but it was like, I mean, and when you get, okay, now everybody who knows Brandon, when you get Brandon, whoa, yeah, I heard that too. You can almost feel it. It was so loud in your ear. And I mean, maybe that somebody didn't finish off going, hello. I don't know, but it was like, it's scary, and it's like, again, I would sleep there. I would do it. But I don't think it's something out there like you would get hurt, but it is probably just because it's so active. I think that's one of those things. We sleep in a lot of places, and usually when it's bedtime, we shut it down, and I don't have any experiences at night, but I would definitely be sleeping with one eye open in that place. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's just because of our past experiences there, and probably had a lot to do, like I said, with
well, somebody right here, they said the spirits are probably more used to Ronnie. They might not trust other people yet.
Yeah.
True too. And it is a medical facility as well too. So, what we're taking as a growl could be somebody throwing up. I mean,
Yeah.
It sounds very familiar and very similar. And I mean, you're in a medical facility and there's people who are sick. So you don't know if once again, that's a residual sound of somebody running in the door, thrown up on the floor, or,
Right.
and you're just at the right place at the right time residually. But like I said, I there's been many a times where I've fallen asleep on the couch on the second floor, working, and I've woken up where somebody who isn't there but is there, kind of given my shoulder a little tug saying, time to go. And I've never, like I said, I've never really felt scared. I would say when I did investigate there prior to owning it, I do remember we were there one night, and like I said, remember you'd sleep downstairs on those really nasty mattresses. And I remember there were, 4 guys. We were there one night, and I had to go to the washroom so bad, but I was too afraid. I'm like, come on, guys, let's go. And everybody's like, we don't have to. I remember laying on that mattress with my legs crossed going, I guess I'm going to wait till the light comes out, until the sun comes up. Because, I was afraid to death. And now walking through the building, it's like almost a second home. It's just really, really comforting to me.
Well, one major question I have for OSPH is, what happened to the car?
So that is a good question. When we had bought it, the Hayes family was the one who owned it prior to myself. It was part of the auction, but the doctor had called me. It's Dr. Hayes. He had called me and said, hey, my car is in there. Do you mind if I can take it back? It's mine, blah, blah, blah. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? It really was his property. I wasn't buying the car. I was buying the hospital. So we pushed it out and put it in the parking lot, and he came, picked it up. And then after I looked at it, then I looked at what the value of it was. I was like, oh, man, did I really just do that?
What kind of car was it?
It was an Alfa Romero. It was a 4C, and it was an antique. It was worth a ton of money. And the reason why I kind of gave it back to him was because when I looked at the condition of it in the hospital, remember, people were like, the windshield was broken, and I think somebody tried to, get into the trunk and they wedged it. So it was all kind of minor stuff that would have been fixed. But when we pushed it out, it was in really good shape. And I was looking at it going, oh, maybe 10 grand to fix $100,000 car. And then I see it go, see it going down the road with Dr. Hayes. In the end, it was the right thing to do because it was his property. But like I said, it was just would have been really nice to keep based off. It would have been nice to keep and kind of restore it and put it in the front yard or something like that as part of the historical value of the hospital. But yeah, it was his, and we gave it back to him.
Well, if he ever sold it, I wonder if he's going to put haunted hospital kept instead of garage kept.
I can tell you a story about that. So Dr. Hayes actually lived right down the road from the hospital. You can actually see his house from the hospital. Well, as we're pulling the Alfa Romero out, he's telling me about this story. So Dr. Hayes was an overall physician, and he would actually treat people at his house. So apparently it was the middle of winter, and he had a white van that was sitting out in front of his house. Well, he had a young lady who he had treated quite frequently, and she was a heroin addict. And I guess one time she was sick, and she walked to Dr. Hayes' house, rang the front door, and nobody came. So she crawled into his van, and she fell asleep in the middle of winter. And so apparently she had passed away. Dr. Hayes didn't use that car, went outside in the middle of August and opened up the door, and there she was.
Oh, man.
Well, the kicker of the story is he asked me if I wanted to buy it. I was like, so they removed the remains of the young lady, but he never cleaned the van. And I was like, no, thank you.
Hey, offer it to Bagans. Bagans will buy it.
Right. So I couldn't even imagine. And like I said, he was explaining to me that, she had walked in sometime in the middle of winter, and they didn't use that van for nearly, I think, 7 or 8 months. And in the middle of the summer, he went to open it up, and there she was, whatever was remained, whatever remained of her.
Wow. Like, can you imagine that? Can you just, like, in that month, that's the worst month you can find someone who's passed away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Like, even like for 9 hours, 9 days. I mean, good God.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine what it looked like. And he kind of, and I'm not going to get descriptive, but he kind of got really descriptive in terms of what was still remaining in the van, because they don't, when something like that happens, you've got to pay somebody to come out and clean it. It's not just they don't just take the body and clean. You've got to actually hire somebody to clean it up. And Dr. Hayes didn't have anybody clean it up, so it was like still there.
Yeah, I would dump the van. I wouldn't even
right
take that through Mr. Car Wash. It's like that ain't happening. It's like burn it down.
Scott wants to know, why did he leave the car in the hospital if he wanted it back?
So Dr. Hayes, kind of the story of Dr. Hayes is Dr. Hayes actually bought the hospital because at the time he was actually a very, very, whatever we call it, a good doctor. And he had a car collection, and he actually had the hallways lined with cars. And that's actually the reason he bought the hospital, was to store his cars. Well, as he started doing things not so right, he started owing taxes and all that other stuff. So he started selling vehicles one by one by one by one. And the Alfa Romero just happened to be the last one that remained that he never pulled out. So that's actually the real reason he bought the hospital, was for storage of his cars. And if you guys remember, when you investigated, remember in the emergency room, there was that one closet that had car parts in it. There were carburetors in there, and that's the area that he used to actually fix the cars, was right underneath that ambulance or the emergency bay in the back.
Oh, wow. Learn something new about OSPH every day. I never even knew that.
Yeah, we did a lot of research after we bought the hospital, primarily because, there were a lot of people who are walking around, and, if you go on the internet and you read like, oh, Indians were maimed there and there was a big civil war and this, we wanted to make sure that when people came, we were telling the true stories of the land. And so when we started digging and we started talking to residents and the Hayes family and all that other stuff, it's really, really intriguing that a lot of the folklore that's behind OSPH is a lot of made up stuff. It's really kind of unique. And one of the reasons I get really, really upset is because people take all this stuff off the internet and they really use it in their podcasts and that kind of stuff. And, like Jim is an example. Jim's one of the biggest ones that really irritates me because, a lot of the stuff that we know about Jim is not true. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've got the documentation to prove it all. I mean, people were talking about him being a drug user and all this other stuff, and that's why the needles were in the building. He was diabetic. Those needles were not used for drugs. They were used for his insulin.
Yeah.
And they made him out to be this big monster because, bad things sell. Good things don't sell. We all like to hear, the bad in life, and that's what makes everything so intriguing and like it's in dark and that sells. Somebody who is, shooting insulin into their veins to keep themselves alive, that's a boring story. Somebody who's a heroin addict walking around a haunted hospital, that's a story.
Right. I mean, people want to make up their own. I mean, we go to Bobby Mackey's a lot. There's like 50 different stories of what it used to be. And it's like people ask us, and I was like, honestly, I don't even know what the story is. I don't, because there's so many floating around.
Right. Yeah, that's what we
I haven't yet to see something documented that's factual, not like a Wikipedia that anybody can write into,
Right, and that's why we tried to really dig deep and try to figure out exactly what was going on with OSPH, and the staff and I did a really great job, trying to debunk a lot of that stuff, and that doesn't make the building any more or less haunted or active.
No.
It just makes the stories true, and I think that's what's really, really cool about it.
I think what's so ironic about the whole doom and gloom thing, we talk about it all the time, is people, yeah, you're right, like horror sells and bad things sell, tragedy sells, but in our experience during investigation, that's not what gets the activity. It's the levity. It's joking around, cutting up, having an actual real conversation, not bringing up, death and doom and gloom and all those types of things. We get way more activity, going the opposite way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and my staff and I will tell you that when we're in the building cleaning and pulling up carpeting and tiles, that's when we get the most activity. If you're sitting around in a circle asking the same questions over and over again, when did you die? What year is this? Like me and you having a conversation, Chris or Mike or Ian, you don't want me to ask you your name 50,000 times. We know what your name is. It's when, like you said, it's when you're cutting up, it's when you're having a good time. We used to have a family night at the hospital all the time where we would go and we'd have Nerf wars amongst the staff. And the activity was off the hook. I mean, we would be in the building just playing Nerf wars, and you'd hear voices, and here they come, and he's over here, and you'd hear footsteps running down the halls with us. And I think that's what really, really makes the building active. And that's where you get your most experiences, is when you're really not trying to force it. It'll come more naturally that way.
Hey, the next event, we'll have a Nerf war package.
Bring them on.
So, Ronnie, what have you validated about the children there? Because on the third floor, there's quite a lot of toys, a rocking horse, horse and tricycles. And I've heard stories about certain children there. So have you validated their stories?
We did get the only validation that I can tell you 100% true, and it is validated. There's a gentleman named Mike, and I think you guys all know him. His name is Michael Cook. He's an amazing guy. But the one that about Buddy with the snakes in his pocket, where he reaches in and he thought they were worms and ended up at OSPH passing away from copperhead snake bites. We've got the documentation on Buddy. That's really the only one that I can tell you 100% is true. But the problem with OSPH is the hospital itself has got a lot of deaths around it. So back when OSPH was actually open, a lot of times, like let's say Junior died in his bed and down the road, the physician from OSPH would go and he would actually would confirm him as being passed away, but they would put OSPH down as place of death. So it's really, really hard to find out who actually died in OSPH versus who died in their homes. So to validate a lot of that information is really, really hard. And Marion County wasn't real good at keeping, real good records on who actually passed away in the hospital. And we didn't even have ambulance service at the hospital for quite some time. It was towards the later stages of it actually being open. So a lot of people would drive to the hospital themselves. So there was really no record of them. Now there's a record of you. You get in the ambulance and they know you're on the way. And there's records from, the time you call 911 to the time you get there. OSPH was a little bit different in terms of that because they didn't have that ambulance service. So people would just walk in the front door bloody, or we have a gentleman that we confirmed that was shot in the chest. They were deer hunting, and he drove himself to the hospital and actually passed away in those back doors in the emergency room area. But it's like I said, it's a real challenge especially with the children, because the other thing with the children is that there's not a lot of records kept on them versus adults. So it's really hard to decipher which ones are true and which ones aren't. I know that we have a lot of toys and trinkets and stuff upstairs because, that was the nursery. That was the maternity ward. Everybody who knows who's been up there, that's where babies were delivered. And I know there's a lot of activity up there. And Old South Pittsburgh did have a challenging time with infants because I know that one of the reasons why they stopped birthing was because when there was a baby who was born sick or had trauma, OSPH didn't have the capacity to take care of children. So it's one of the reasons why they actually did stop delivering babies, because when there was a baby that had an issue, they didn't handle it well. So they sent them off to bigger cities into Chattanooga or bigger facilities. So I'm going to get this wrong, but I want to say 83, I think, was the last year of the last child being born. So you've got 16 years after that there was no children being born. And then what they actually did was, we all know that was a psych ward. And so they turned the delivery room and the nursery into actually like care for the psych patients. It was kind of where they did their hobbies, and some of them were could go to work. So they learned their job skills up there and that kind of stuff. So they kind of changed the nursery into something bigger and better for the psych patients and the drug rehab patients and that kind of stuff. Because one of the things I always thought was kind of funny is when you walked upstairs, you got the psych ward on the right-hand side and you got the maternity ward on the left-hand side, and only a door, separating the two.
Was it the same thing? Like, this is something I don't even know.
Yeah, so it was not the same thing. And that's where we got the clarification from, because I questioned that right away. I'm like, what hospital would put a psych ward, with nothing separating it from the maternity ward? And they did not run concurrently. So the psych ward actually happened after the last baby was born.
Yeah, because that's always one of the stories I tell when I go up to the third floor. I'm like, guys, you're going to love this. And then so now it's like I can't tell that anymore because that's.
I'm sorry, Chris, but I thought the same thing. I was like, that's really strange. I mean, that's just dangerous. To have that going on at the same time. And yeah, it was never true. They separated it. They changed kind of paths, and they put the psych ward up there, and it was a drug and rehab center as well. So they used that wing for like a multi-purpose kind of wing.
That's cool. Ronnie, I will use this one for either hospital. Question: in either hospital, is there any area you don't feel comfortable going
in? Not really. Yeah, I would say probably not. I wouldn't say uncomfortable. My biggest thing, to be really honest with you, is being in the hospital and having a real person break in on me. The spirits and that kind of thing doesn't really faze me as much as I'm always looking over my shoulder, because a lot of people think they're abandoned, and we have, we've had issues in the past with people trying to get in, and it's kind of a frightening situation. I would say when I first bought OSPH, Jim's area was kind of frightening to me because, and I'm going to tell this story and I'm probably going to lose a bunch of followers, and a bunch of people who booked are probably not going to come. But my favorite band is Nickelback. Yes, I said it out loud. But I was in Jim's area one night, and we were scrubbing mold off the walls, and I had Nickelback playing really loud, and I felt somebody tap on my shoulder really hard and tell me to get out. And Renee Dykes, if you're watching, she knows, because I called her kind of startled, and I called her. I said, well, what do I do? What I do is on the porch, because this once again was a couple weeks after I bought it, preparing us to open for everybody else. And she says, well, he's probably turned the music down, blah, blah. Well, I went back inside, turned the music down a little bit, and went scrubbing again. And I heard that, like the loudest "get out" in that deep voice, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. So I went back out, called Renee again. I'm like, Renee, what do I do? She says, well, get the heck out. Well, I went back in to get my Nickelback turned off and all other stuff, and there were boot marks that were so when you scrub down walls and you get the mold off the walls, you use a special solution that you throw on the wall and you let it soak, kills the mold, and then you rinse it with water. And so there was big puddles of water, and through the puddles of water, it looked what like was work boots that walked around the corner. I was the only one in the hospital. So I called Renee. I'm like, Renee, do not get off the phone with me until I get the building locked up and I'm back at the hotel. Do not, because it was truly scary. And now to this very day, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's like, I think Jim and I have made peace with each other. We're kind of friends now. So, but that was probably the most frightening time I've ever been in OSPH because, yeah, it was, I mean, like I said, the scream in my ear was just so stern and so get out. I was like, okay, I'm gone.
It's never listen to
And I think,
again, huh?
I was going to say, and I think a lot of it had to do with Nickelback. I don't think he liked the music.
No Nickelback, bro. not over there anyway. I guess.
So now I just put them in my ears so nobody else can hear.
That's funny. We'll use that when we're there in March. Look at this photograph. Make all the activity go up.
Hey, Lyle says he likes Nickelback.
Yeah, well, it's really funny because I joke around about it a lot because they're one of the most hated groups in America, but I've never been to one of their concerts that's got an empty seat. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why. I mean, I like Nickelback just like the next guy. I don't know why people hate them so much. They had how many #1 hits? It's like they were huge. And anybody who says they hate Nickelback, they at least know 1 or 2 songs.
And they were probably at the concert on Friday night too.
I think for me is because like back in the day when they first were like a huge hit, it was kind of like Britney Spears. Every time you turn the radio on, there was a Nickelback song. I'm like, no more Nickelback. It was just constant. It was either Britney Spears or Nickelback or what was that? It was a boy band back then, Backstreet Boys or something. Tracy wants to know was the building? I guess we can do both hospitals. She didn't specify. But I'm thinking OSPH, was it built as an upscale hospital or was it built for middle to lower class?
It was a community hospital. Both hospitals were. So they were designed for everybody. Didn't make a difference what your class rating was. I want to say South Pittsburgh at the time it was built was kind of a middle income class. It was built on the banks of the Tennessee River. You're close to the Tennessee River, so it had a lot of travel. Harriman, I would say, was probably more of an upper class because if you do kind of the research on Harriman, Harriman is a really unique town in terms of they were built on the temperance movement, which was kind of a utopia. What they believed in was that people didn't drink, didn't smoke. It was kind of a pure lifestyle. And I think when that building was built, it was built more towards the higher society of people. And then as time went by, the utopia kind of fell apart and Harriman started on fire, flooded, had all sorts of things happen to it. And then it kind of became the Harriman, just the Harriman Community Hospital. Harriman is really intriguing because we're having a lot of struggles we spent the whole day at the Historical Society today. And we're trying to get dates and times and when the building had additions to it. But Harriman is 186,000 square feet. So if anybody's been at OSPH, that's 68,000 square feet. And Harriman has got, I think it's 6 or 7 additions. The original hospital was only 14 windows long in the front. It was a tiny little hospital. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing to the point where now it's a city block. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you guys it's a city block. It stretches from Walden to Queen Street, and then it faces Rowan County. And you guys have been there. You look down that we call it the city block. You look down that you can't see the other end of the hospital. It is that big. It is just massive.
Oh, yeah, it is that. Like when we had our tour, they were very your guys were very in depth and specific, and I kept telling them like, "There's no way I'm going to remember all this. There's just too much area here. Like they're going into detail." And I'm like, just give us the the need to know stuff because this is like I'm starting to get mixed up and I'm getting lost, and they're like telling us different ways we can go, and I'm like, let's keep it down to one way.
Well, and Harriman is really unique too because unlike South Pittsburgh, a lot of the people that worked at South Pittsburgh are no longer with us. or they've just completely moved out of the area. Harriman, because it closed about 10 years ago, we have been in contact with so many of the doctors and nurses, and they tell all these wicked stories of hauntings when the building was open. And it's really kind of neat because it's really divided. We'll talk to, like 50% of the staff that's been there, and they're like, oh my God, I can tell you all these, like everything from charts flying off the wall to seeing Joanna after she had passed away. And then you have the other 50% of the people like, oh, it's not haunted. I've never had an experience there. And I really, really think that people are just trained not to believe in that stuff. And the ones that we have talked to, I mean, the stories that we hear are phenomenal. I mean, like I said, stuff from charts flying off the wall. We have a couple of ladies on the staff who actually work there who, have seen full body apparitions. They've seen Joanna, which is one of the lead cardiac care nurses. After she passed away, they have seen her walk the halls. They see a gentleman in a bow tie who goes on the elevator, and then right after that, you'll have a cardiac arrest in one of the rooms, or what do you call it, a code blue, where somebody's passing away, and then the guy just disappears. We've talked to the fire department, the police department, that see women in white that are in front of the windows. And the police department got to the point where they would actually come into the building because they were seeing people in the building, and they would come in and there's nobody there. Like there's no forced entry, there's no broken windows. So it's really kind of neat. And it's really neat that we have the opportunity, to talk to a lot of these people who work there and tell us a lot of the stories that were going on when the building was still open.
Wow. It's cool. You hear it all the time, especially I've known several people who work as nurses today that have lots of ghost stories, and buildings that are still operational, hospitals that are still operational. So,
well, and it's truly one of those, it's the only building where you have everything that's from life to death and everything in between. So you have so much energy, just so much energy. You have trauma, you have happiness, you have everything. So it's really kind of neat. And I think a lot of that gets trapped into the walls, and, and then you've got healthcare workers who put, 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days in there who, they've called it their home. And even after they pass, they're still doing their rounds. They're, whether their residual imprint is there or they just refuse to leave, it's still there. And I think that's what makes hospitals so incredibly active and really intriguing.
Now, Joanna, because I know Harriman, it hadn't been that long ago that it wasn't operational. Is she the one who passed away in the hospital that also worked there? Is she the nurse?
Correct. So Joanna was actually the cardiac care nurse. She did the cardiac ICU. She was in a wing, which we call A3. And Joanna, this is kind of a wild story, but Joanna pretty much trained everybody in the cardiac area. She was a specialist. And then, believe it or not, Joanna passed away in the emergency room of, guess what? Cardiac arrest. Yeah. And when she had passed away, she had told the doctors and nurses that she didn't want to be on morphine, that she wanted to die lucid. And when she had passed, right before passing, she says, I'm coming back to see you guys. I'm never leaving my home. And sure enough, she's in that. We get sightings of her all the time. And talking to a lot of the nurses and doctors, she was the sweetest thing that hospital ever had. Very caring, very true to her word, and an extremely good nurse. Like, from my understanding, she was a top-notch cardiac care nurse.
Yeah, there were still some volunteers there. Or they were either your volunteers or people that were just at the event who used to work with her in the hospital that were telling stories, which was pretty cool. And, having them there to try and communicate was also, I think, a big, additive to our activity that night.
Right. We have about a half a dozen on our staff that either were administrative assistants there, nurses, a pharmacist. But yeah, they're on our staff. And so they know the building inside and out. They can tell you a lot of the stories they had when the building was actually there, or when it was actually open.
Which is a huge benefit. That's a huge asset to have, people on the staff that used to work at the joint. Not only do they know it inside and out, but they have experiences there. They're like walking trigger objects pretty much.
Right.
So it's like even during the investigation itself, somebody telling a story like that can spark some. I mean, that's usually when you hit record and you get voices chiming in on that, because it's not just somebody. So what happened here and stuff? It's somebody giving you facts.
And I can tell you one of the coolest stories that we ever had it goes back to OSPH, and we all know the story of the janitor who died in the basement, right? Well, once again, it's not a true story. So we were actually sitting at Cracker Barrel after we had a public event, and we were all in our OSPH garb, and there's this guy at the other table like staring us down, and I'm like, oh no, here we go, somebody thinking we're doing the wrong things, blah blah blah. Well, he gets up and he walks up to me. He says, "You're the owner of OSPH, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "I'm Art. I'm the maintenance man from the hospital." And my mouth dropped through the table. I'm like, "No, dude, you're dead." He's like, "No, I'm not. I'm right here." And his wife is chuckling. I'm like, "We've been told you were dead." And he was like, "No." So he tells the whole story about, the maintenance that he did in the hospital, if we ever needed a hand. So I'm like, "Hey, let's go. Let's take you back to the hospital." So it's really frightening. So we get Art. He comes back in the hospital. Of course, as paranormal investigators, everybody's got their voice recorders going. And so he's walking through the building, and all of a sudden, you hear the elevator ding, and he stops dead in his tracks, and he goes, "Did you guys turn the elevator back on?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, that's the sound of the elevator." So he's going through the building, like just validating everything. So afterwards, we go to the front of the building, and we start playing back his voice recorder, and he's actually recognizing voices of people who are saying hi to him. Like literally legitimately saying, "Oh, I recognize that voice. That's nurse so-and-so." And we're like, "No way." And so that still gives me chills to this very day. But like I said, so kind of Art's story is when he was there, he was actually brought into the hospital sick as a child, fell in love with the building, volunteered his time in the hospital as a child, as a teenager, and then was actually brought on staff, paid to maintain it, and spent his whole adult life there until the hospital closed. So you're talking about a guy who spent, well, not hundreds, but he's spending tens, lots of time in that building. And then so we were chatting. He's like, now he's actually a maintenance guy for a hospital in Alabama. But he sat down. He's like, "This was always my love. I love this building," and told so many stories. And like I said, him walking through the hospital and hearing voices in the background, and him saying, "Oh yeah, that's nurse so and so," and it was just really kind of chilling.
All right, so Nerf Wars and Bring in Art. Those are going to be the two packs.
And Ian, yes, Lyle, that is Ian. He said, "Is that Ian, the great equipment creator from Atlanta?"
Who's asking that?
Lyle.
Oh, yes.
It is him.
It is him. It is
For
me.
everybody that's always asking about the WRAITH pods, the truly very high quality piece of equipment that was made right here in America, in Atlanta, from a British guy. That's him right here.
That's what's wrong with his shoulder. He put together too many of those things. And
Yeah, they're not getting any more pods for the next few months. Recovering from a rotator cuff and bicep tendon reconstructive surgery.
Man, not going to be
Playing here.
You'll be good to go by March, right?
I'm sorry?
You'll be good to go by March.
I should be by March. Yeah, but I'm not bringing any heavy cases of equipment with me.
We have wheelchairs and ramps for you. You're all good.
Yeah, and you've got operating rooms there if something goes wrong with my shoulder. Haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm sure Mike, Chris, and I would love to throw a couple of scalpels together, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll fix it.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got a very steady hand.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
It's going to be a good one. So, yeah, what is it? The 23, 24?
I believe so.
The 24th and the 25th.
So I think we're at O on the 24th and OSPH on the 25th.
Yeah.
It's going to be a blast. And I know the last time you guys were out was a phenomenal time. I know that we had some hiccups on our first trip with you guys out. And I would say we definitely straightened all that shit out, didn't we, boys?
Oh, yeah. And we did it in the best place.
It was on fire last time.
Oh, yeah.
I think the majority of people that are talking about it now are going to do the same thing, come to both. So everybody's going to just kind of caravan from one hospital to the other.
So I will tell you guys, anybody who's going to do that, if you're going to stay the night in Harriman, we recommend Days Inn Hotel. Really good rates. I'm actually staying here right now. Like I said, it's a great little facility. They just remodeled a lot of it. I think the rates are as low as like $55. I won't mention a couple others that are close by, but don't use them. They're not as nice as this one. And then, of course, we've got, I think, the Holiday Inn, which is kind of the upper tier one. But the Days Inn, they just remodeled. Great people here. And this is when I'm in town. I generally stay here. And then if you're going to OSPH, I know, Mike, we went to the Quality Inn in Kimball. And that's a really great hotel as well too. Those are the two that we use the most. Great people, and like I said, pretty clean rooms.
Yeah,
We were happy.
no complaints here. We had a great time, both locations. I highly recommend. If you've been to OSPH or you haven't been in a long time, you know you're going to get good stuff there, and you might as well go to Harriman because you've never been before. So,
yep, Harriman is cool. I think Harriman is kind of an up and coming star. I think recently a lot of people are coming. We've gotten a lot of rebookings. I know Destination Fear was out there, and one of the questions that people have asked me, and I get a lot of this, is, did they fake it? It's for TV, blah, 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 and all that other stuff. I would say, knowing these guys, they're really great people. I know Mike and Chris, you guys know them as well. I think they're a little dramatic, but I will tell you that what they have witnessed in the hospital, I can validate because we've got the same evidence. Especially that REM pod thing where somebody was running down the hall at them.
Yeah.
We've had that happen multiple times there. The area where Chelsea was sleeping, and they had the what do you call it? What's that called? I can't think of the name of it. The red light thing, the laser grid. We see somebody in that area of the hospital constantly. So, like I said, the evidence that they came up with was pretty amazing. The walkie-talkies, maybe, maybe not. I'm really skeptical about the walkie-talkies because, to be really honest with you, the police department's right across the street. So there could have been interference with, the walkie-talkies in the police department. But without a doubt, the shadow figure that they caught and that running down the hallway, we have that happen regularly.
That's cool. You can kind of validate that you've had it. I still got to watch the episodes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, that's what I was saying before you came on. I bought Discovery Plus last year, and I've yet to watch anything. I mean, I see the clips that Travel Channel posts, and I've seen that clip where the pods were starting to go off like something running down the hallway.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty amazing. Like I said, Rhonda, who is really the caretaker of the building, she's there all the time. But we'll be on the phone, and I can hear somebody coming down you can hear the footsteps through the phone, and she's just so calm and cool, collected about it. She goes, "Oh, somebody's running after me." And you have to remember the area that they were at was actually kind of the main corridor that went to the ORs. So we're kind of thinking that that was probably a code. And that was probably one of our resident doctors or nurses heading to a code. And, it wasn't anything bad. It was just somebody rushing to get to a location in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some sort of residual type thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Cool. You want to watch some Discovery, Mike? They've got some Tennessee lads on today.
I know, yeah. There's 10 hours of Haunted Towns on today.
That's right.
Oh, no.
It's time to collect all those royalty checks.
Yeah. We signed the wrong contract. Anybody got any last minute questions before we head out?
Well, while you're thinking of that, all these good people. What's up, Tanya? Thank you. She was watching Haunted Towns today, she told me. Let's see. Susan Teresa said, "Get with it." What did I do?
Well, and I do have to say that Haunted Towns and Mike, you and I've talked about this in great detail. I think you guys are one of the best shows on TV. I mean, I was thoroughly entertained with that. It's a shame that it wasn't renewed, and like I said, the Wraith Chasers it was an amazing show, and kudos to you guys for doing what you did and staying true to yourselves. And like I said, I think that was one of the greatest shows on earth, and it was very entertaining. I mean, a lot of the shows now, we won't mention any names, they just didn't have that kind of spark and I don't know what you'd call it, that pizzazz that you guys did. But it was a great show. It really was, and it's like a shame. I don't know. Maybe we should produce our own show with you guys and do it over again because, like I said, it was a great show.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. That's going to be the new T-shirt, pizzazz. But,
just as long as I get royalties for that, okay? My penny per T-shirt.
Yeah, we'll send you one check a year. It'll be for 8 cents. Last question is from Don. Is Ronnie writing a book? Are you going to write a book?
I've been I'm not a very good writer, very wordy, but somebody actually asked me about that. And I had somebody who's not a producer, but an editor asked me if I had material, and I'm kind of thinking about it. I think it would be interesting because owning the two locations, it's neat because I've got multiple things, not just like you said, the paranormal. But it's really neat because I don't think people understand how much time I actually spend in the locations. I mean, I'm there pretty much from 8 o'clock in the morning till sometimes 2 o'clock at night. And while I'm there, I experience a lot of things. And people always, they're asking me, well, do you believe in spirits? Do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? And I'm like, I can tell you stories that I don't believe a lot of times. And so I thought about doing that, and right now I'm just really, really focused on keeping the buildings healthy and working on them and saving more locations. We're looking at some more locations in Tennessee to pick up, primarily because, like I said, these are, I'm from Chicago, and when we have a building like this, we demolish it and put condominiums up, or we demolish it and we put. Our history is just disappearing so quickly and so rapidly, and if I can stop one or two buildings from being demolished, and we get to share it with the people like the Wraith Chasers and your guests, and it get to experience something paranormal as well as historical, my goal has been reached, and that's why I do it. I really love the historical portion of it, but I do like I said, I love standing in that hallway and having somebody whisper in my ear, "Good job," or "Go home," or whatever, and so it adds kind of an extra element to refurbishing and remodeling and fixing and all that good stuff. So but yeah, maybe someday when I got some extra time, I can sit down and start writing something like that.
Well, don't give up on that. I've got a friend in England who has had a novel in his head for a long time. He finally put it to paper. He typed up his novel. It's being published in a few weeks' time. He's 68 years old. It took him decades to actually write it out. And they already commissioned a sequel to his novel. So don't give up on that thought.
Well, and it's really kind of neat the way that Old South Pittsburgh kind of happened. It just kind of fell in my lap in a really good way. And like I said, it's just I'm one of those people that believe everything kind of happens for a reason, and I think that this was a calling of mine, and like I said, I'm going to do my best to keep OSPH up and running and up and running, and possibly some more locations down the road, because I want our children to be able to walk into these locations and be like, oh, look at how cool this is, and the architecture, if you see in the front of O, is just really a pretty building. And that's the kind of things I want to save for future generations and our generation as well, obviously.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you rock, Ronnie.
Absolutely.
It's a Nickelback, guys.
I'm gonna have to give them another chance now. You know what? You turn me around on it.
Their new album is actually pretty good. Just downloaded it, and I spent a lot of time on airplanes going back and forth, so I get to listen to it. It's actually a pretty decent album.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but I'll YouTube a few songs.
Fair enough.
All right. It's a stalemate.
All right, guys, before we sign off, March 24th, 25th, back-to-back, Old Harriman Hospital, Old South Pittsburgh. We will all be there.
Yeah.
Ronnie will have his book written by March, so you can come buy his book. Ian's going to have 12 pods built by then.
I'll see what I can do.
I know.
With one hand.
Throwing everybody under the bus. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for your time and sharing all this stuff with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to do this more often. And thanks to all the WRAITH RAF out there that joined us tonight. Wouldn't be able to do these awesome things that we love to do without you guys supporting us and hanging out. Thanks to all the people, the new people that I haven't seen, which I've seen a few new people over here, for hanging out with us tonight. Can't wait to see you all in March.
Absolutely. Well, guys, you guys have a good night. And I'm sure we'll talk many times before.
You soon.
But you guys be safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys, for having me on.
Bye-bye.
Good night.